Hey everyone, how you doing? Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, happy just everything. How's it going? I am coming at you from my hotel room here in Cancun, Mexico. So things are all upside down for me right now, but I'm glad I'm here because it's another episode of Coffee with Colin, and the holidays are coming up here. If you haven't gotten your episode or your copy of Agile Artist yet, it makes a great stocking stuffer. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm doing a live episode. I can't. No. Yeah. Okay, here we're back. Okay. All right. That was room service. Wanting to turn down the bed. But so that's what you get for a live episode. Anyway, how's everyone doing? Hope you guys are having a great week so far. Thank you for joining me on this special Tuesday edition of Coffee with Colin. I had to fly down here to Cancun, Mexico because R3 Stem Cell, who I'm an ambassador for, had me come down here because they have a clinic down here and they wanted me to do some social media and to do some video to promote the vacation package down here. So this is an amazing opportunity to come down and have a vacation, play some golf, play some tennis, get some sun, and look and feel better. So if you want more information about how you can come down here to Cancun, Mexico, and get more information about the packages that they are putting together, you can go to r3stemcell.com, or you can email Kathleen Francesca at kfrancesca@r3stemcell.com. And yeah, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's episode is special because we have an Emmy Award winning author with us tonight. And I always love to learn about what it takes to produce and to bring projects from conception to the big screen. So when it comes to putting stories together, everyone has an idea, right? But to actually turn that idea into an actual screenplay, into an actual book, she's written several books herself. I mean, when I wrote Agile Artist, it took me about 9 months, and it was pretty grueling. But my guest tonight, she seems to be able to she just channels creativity, and it comes out of her, and she creates all these amazing stories. So I can't wait to talk to her tonight about where she gets her ideas and how long it takes her for her to write her books and her screenplays. And then most importantly, how she turns those stories into actual films, because she has had projects on Netflix and Hallmark and Lifetime, and she's got these amazing books, and she's now just come out with an Audible original with Mr. Ryan Pavey, who's doing the audio for it. And these are some lovely Christmas stories. So you may want to, Christmas is still around the corner. Love Always Christmas, Once Upon a Christmas Carol. And she's going to tell us a lot more about all of her projects coming up, because she's got a ton of stuff coming up. And while you are here, if you want to ask her any questions, feel free to type in the chat here. Love your questions, and so appreciate you guys being here every week and participating. And I love to incorporate what you guys have into the show. So feel free to chime in here, and let's get to it, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Miss Karen Schaler. Woo!
Yay!
How you doing?
I'm missing my Santa hat, Colin. You didn't tell me the hat, thing. Oh my goodness, Cancun. I'm jealous.
Yeah, it's pretty cool down here. I just got down here last night, and it's been so far it's been pretty rough. I've been scoping out the resort and figuring out what all the amenities are. And
I'm playing my violin. This is me playing my violin for you. Yeah. And I love the festive Santa outfit. Your winter on the top and a party of Cancun on the bottom there.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a little tropical and a little Santa, and we're going to have an amazing conversation. And you've got your Christmas spirit going too. You got your Christmas tree in the background there.
I do. Well, it's crazy. When COVID happened, instead of being on movie sets and things like that, of course, I decided, I can do this at home. So it was like a process. At first I started to, do a curtain with twinkle lights. That was a complete disaster. This is actually a 10-foot by 10-foot like a screen almost. And then like, this is real, so I try to add in real, but people think it's one of those virtual backgrounds. I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's in my living room. It's like a real
Okay.
deal.
Awesome. Well, you look very festive, and as always, you look beautiful, and you have
Oh,
such an amazing spirit. I met you at the Rama Drama actor convention in June in West Palm Beach, and we sat together to watch premiere of Ryan Pavey, and it was also it was Ashley Williams's film. It was Two Tickets to Paradise. And how many? So that was obviously a Hallmark movie. How many Hallmark movies have you actually written and brought to the screen?
well, and first of all, that was such a fun event. I mean, that was
Yeah.
so great to be able to meet you. And because I met Ryan, I actually met Ryan at the first Rama Drama, which was in Franklin, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. And that's why he's now in one of my projects. And it just shows you, the connections. You always hear when people are like, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And I always say I'm the girl from nothing and nowhere. I didn't have any connections. We'll talk about that. How do you break in and all of that? But the funny story is that I always wanted to write a Hallmark movie. That was my dream. I was the war correspondent, and that was kind of the back burner type thing. And I had a situation with my travel show. I couldn't travel for a couple weeks, and I'm not really one to sit still. So I was like, this is it. It was Christmas time. I was watching him, and I thought, I'm going to study this like a reporter. I'm going to do this. So I wrote what I thought was going to be a Hallmark movie. Even the executive producer said, this is Hallmark. This is Hallmark. And at the time, this was 2017, so this was, the time for it. And then long story short, it ended up being on Netflix as Netflix's first original Christmas movie that they made, A Christmas Prince. And because that blew up, because all these people that were used to watching Hallmark, they know Hallmark, and you had this young generation on Netflix going, what's this cheesy, silly little movie? But they liked it. They resonated this, good content, because, you make these too, and people want good, feel good movies. Well, at the same time, I had written, they always say, be ready, right? If that door finally opens, you don't want to be a one-trick pony. And so I had another script. Ironically, I thought that would be Netflix because it was a bigger cast. It was sort of an ensemble. And I thought budget-wise, and that ended up being Hallmark.
I hate to interrupt you, but because I just kind of want to unpack this first script before going on to the next one. So you were a war correspondent. So I would assume you went to journalism school.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Where'd you go to school?
Cal State Fullerton. Okay. And I actually picked it when I was 10 years old. And I moved my senior year of high school because I couldn't afford out-of-state tuition. I'm from Washington State area originally. And so I was a live-in nanny my senior year to get residency so I could go to Cal State and be, pay that less tuition as a resident.
Mm-hmm. And so when you decided to go to Cal State Fullerton, I would imagine you went there because you wanted to be a journalist.
Exactly. And I wanted to be even when I was a kid, I wanted to be a foreign war correspondent because I really wanted to, I wanted to be a foreign correspondent when I was really young because I wanted to see the world, right? And I thought I kind of came from very modest means and I wanted to be able to travel and tell stories. And National Geographic was my favorite magazine. My grandma would get them from the library and I'd look over pages. So I when I was very, very young, like 8 or 9, I took pictures and I wanted to be a photojournalist. But then I saw the power of television to even tell in a kind of a heightened way. I thought I can always take my pictures while I'm doing television. So I was a very focused kid. And so my plan was to try and go, especially to third world countries and tell stories that, people didn't know about. And so when it went into, as I kind of went up the food chain of TV news, I saw all of these political stories being told about the wars and things. And I thought, what about the people? Especially, the weekend warriors, as I called it. The first time I went was Bosnia, and I went with an Army Reserve unit. And these were regular people like you or me, Colin, that, would volunteer. Some of them hadn't even been out of the country, and I thought, what about their stories? What about the families that are at home? What about the kids, and I really wanted to tell the kind of human, heartfelt stories. And that's kind of continued to translate today in any of the storytelling I do to kind of really get to the heart and what matters. And it's like what you do, like inspiring and empowering people through our storytelling.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense because I would imagine once you got there and got to know the soldiers and the people over there, I mean, that's where we do get our stories, just from getting to know people and hearing their personal, getting to know their background. And that's when we become invested with people. whether with anything. Like, I have a lot of friends who don't like sports, but as soon as they start to learn about the actual players themselves, then they become invested, because it's more about getting to know these people and what the challenges they face and what they've overcome. And so you're over there. At any point, did you feel in danger, like you were putting your life at risk? And was this something that your parents were like, okay, we don't want you to do this. This is way too dangerous?
Well, it's funny you asked that. So the first time when I went to Bosnia, was when I remember my birthday was yesterday, December 19th. And I remember it was when President Clinton at the time said US troops were going to go into Bosnia for peacekeeping. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to find the very first unit. And it happened to be in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I would be embedded with that unit, meaning I would go with them and literally down to every bit of clothes, to the socks, to the long johns, because it was right before Christmas. And so I had to go through the training, the same training in Hohenfels, Germany, landmine and sniper training. And I remember being a little bit Private Benjamin, and I know I'm aging myself here, but, a beautiful, fun Goldie Hawn movie where, she's, kind of trying with the troops, and the blonde, and they think she's kind of dingy, because I go there. And I remember when in landmine and sniper training, I had a good eye, so I could see the landmines, like the triggers. So like, you're going to be in the first Humvee in the caravan. And I was so proud. Like, this is awesome. This is real, like real life. I'm like, this is awesome. And then one of the soldiers goes, Dingbat. I remember he called me Dingbat. He goes, Dingbat, the first Humvee is not the one to be in a war zone, because that's the one that gets blown up, and I was like, oh, okay. So that was my moment of really learning about, be careful what you wish for, because I wanted to be in the action and really understand it. And I did not tell my parents I was going, to answer your question, because, I'm working in Salt Lake. They're in Washington State. I had what was called a family readiness. Anyone listening that's military, in the Army, they are the ones that call family members to let them know, because a lot of times you're deployed and you're not able to tell people for security reasons. And in that case, I just had someone call and say, oh, Karen's on a little assignment, because I'm an only child. And of course I knew they would worry. And I said, oh, I'm just going to Tuzla, and I'm going to go, I'm going to be in this area with, I'm with public affairs reservists. They're public affairs people. They're going to be in an office. But then it ended up, we got attached to a tanker troop in the front, so much for the office. But that was Bosnia. And then the next time I went was Afghanistan. And I was embedded with an Apache helicopter unit at 3 bases in Afghanistan. And both times, absolutely, there was danger. There was flying in where, there was fire, so we'd have to come back. There was a bombing when I was in Afghanistan. That was really kind of a life-changing moment when I decided to kind of shift my career, because I remember that it went off. I was doing a live shot, standing in, doing a live camera, and I remember I saw a sound wave before I heard the boom, and there was a bombing outside the front gate. And it comes over the speakers, they're mass casualties, the base is under attack, this is not a drill. And I just remember everyone scrambling and us getting in bunkers, which are basically these metal, it's like what you see on the side of the road, piping, not metal, concrete, open. It's not like you're underground or anything. It's just this open little half concrete pipe. And sitting in there and seeing everything happen. And my photographer was missing, because he was in a place to do the live. Like, I couldn't get a hold of him. And while I was there, we did our job. We came home. I was supposed to go back in country, back to Afghanistan to tell more. And my boss said, because of the danger, he wouldn't let me go. And it's when I quit TV news, and TV news was my career. And I remember saying, if I can't go and tell the stories that matter, I need to get back to my soldiers. I left them. I need to go back. Obviously I was a little, probably had some emotional issues, because I felt like I'd left them behind, and I wanted to go back and continue to tell their story. I said, then I'm going to go cover spas. I'm going to travel, because I love travel was my therapy. And that's why I started my travel therapy TV series, because I thought you can inspire and empower people through travel. But is the main one I like telling people, when we're in the bunkers and it was a very difficult situation, all the soldiers were there for about an hour and a half. At the time was like, it's just, I still remember it so well. But all the soldiers started saying, if I get out of this, if I get home, and almost everyone said, I'm going to take my wife to that trip to the Bahamas. I'm going to take my kids to Disneyland. It's so interesting that so many people had what I've now called my someday trips. These trips that they were going to someday do that. And when you work and live with soldiers, they're really good about living each day and taking, advantage. And I learned that, and I thought about that and I wanted to inspire and empower people. I love my career. I was a White House correspondent briefly, as a fill-in for Lou Dobbs show on CNN. I did a lot, but I covered crime. I covered investigative. I was on the southern border, illegal drug running. I was a crime reporter for 10 years. I worked with Interpol, CIA. I did the hard stuff. And I remember going to a cocktail party and I wanted to tell, what did you do today? And nobody wanted to hear because they were terrible. My mom's like, I can't even hear any more of these stories. And so that's when I thought, I am going to find a way to tell stories that inspire and uplift people. I think it was important what I did and what every journalist does. And we all thank them for going to these dangerous places and telling these stories. But for me personally, it was time to find a new way to try to make a difference. And I know. So that's where all of a sudden the Christmas movies, because it's something that was my therapy. Coming home, I would watch these Christmas movies. I would dive in and I just forget. And I know I'd get a happy ending and it was a safe place to land. And I thought if I can give back and write one and what they gave to me, that to me was a gift that I wanted to try to do.
So were your earlier stories, were they more so slanted towards the stories that you heard from these soldiers overseas?
It's funny, my very first story for Christmas Prince, the one that landed on Netflix, the way that happened was I wrote a spec script that was not a royal themed. It was a different story. And the executive producer at the time wanted that one. And he said, but at Hallmark, we do a royal one every year. So do you have anything royal? And of course, you're trying to break in as a screenwriter, like, yes, it was exactly this time of year. I go, yes, I can do that. He goes, okay, get back to me in the beginning of the year with some ideas. Well, I decided to write it because I write as fast as I talk. It's talking about writing books, although books are so much harder. But I have to write books quickly too. I'm on a kind of a crazy schedule. And so I used inspiration. So now I've left the war zone and I'm doing these travel shows. And the UK had invited me to come over to Wales, to the Isle of Anglesey, where Prince William and Kate had lived when he was serving in the Royal Air Force. They had now moved back to London, but they were trying to promote tourism. And they know that us Americans are crazy, about the royal. So I'm with tourism and they're walking in the footsteps. This is where Will and Kate walk on the beach. This is Will's favorite burger. This is where Kate shops. And they thought it'd be a fun story for my travel segments because my travel segments are all positive and all of that. So I'm in Wales, I'm on the island, and nobody will talk to me. And I'm actually with UK tourism, but they all looked at me as paparazzi. They were protecting the privacy. And it actually really resonated. And I thought, that I don't blame them. Look what's happened to that family. Look what the media has done to that family. And instead of being upset, I ended up talking to people. I'm famous for sitting at the local bar or pub, and just listening, and just hearing. And finally they trusted me and, told that story. So now fast forward, I have a producer that wants a royal story. So I said, what if it's a journalist that's going to go, I'm mixing stories. I had to do a lot of undercover work. What if it's a journalist that has to go undercover? She wants her shot to get a story on this Playboy prince, but it turns out he's a good guy. Now what does she do? Because I had it happen where they'd send me to get the dirt and there was no dirt. And they were like, well, don't come back till you have it. We need the dirt, so those type of stories. So that's where the inspiration for that story came from. It's everything. I think you agree, as a creative, it all comes from somewhere, pieces of it are coming in. And that's why I always tell people, just be open to it. Don't try to be pigeonholed, just be open to whatever might come to you.
So a lot of people here who listen to Coffee with Colin, I like to share insight on how to connect the dots. So for someone out there who maybe has an idea for a screenplay or who has written a screenplay or a book, after you had this idea for Christmas Prince, right? And did you write the book first or the screenplay first?
Oh, great question. So all of mine, I think of myself as a screenwriter first. That's what comes most naturally, probably my years in television, right? I'm writing audio. I think visually. And so all of them I wrote first. And Christmas Prince doesn't have a book. But the way that I did it was to do kind of what you're doing. And I love that you do that, Colin, because that's so helpful. I mean, it's one thing to listen to people go on and on about their stories, but you want to really know if they want to do this and find out. So what I did is because I thought I was writing a Hallmark movie, I studied it. I watched the Hallmark movies like I was doing a news report. I noticed that it was 18 minutes was the first act break. The guy and girl, I literally had like a spreadsheet. And I'm like, okay, the guy and girl have to meet in the first 10 minutes. There's always got to be a near miss kiss. And keep in mind, I did not go to school for screenwriting. I did not have any connections to this, but you watch. And so I watched it, and it's like, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, and I just studied it, and I probably watched 20, and I really got the feel and all of that. And that's what I did. And when I got my spec script, meaning I wrote a script on my own without being paid, I wrote a spec because I knew, at not knowing anyone, how do you get in the door? I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a manager.
Yeah.
That's going to be my resume. And when the producer got it, he's like, this is exactly, and it's exactly what I buy. I had a log line, that we tell people that's that one sentence. And
How'd
that's how
to the producer.
Oh yeah, I love this story. This is my crazy little story. So I start researching, and again, I'm a newbie. So of course I go to Hallmark, and keep in mind, this is 2017. So they're not making their own movies yet, but I didn't connect those dots. I wasn't aware of that. So I just Googled and found people at Hallmark, and I got one of the executives that says, and all I said is, this is who I am. Here's a couple log lines. I have a spec script. And one of the executives wrote back and said, well, we don't make the movies.
Snail mail.
It was email. Oh, it was email for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were able actually to get this executive's email just from.
There's another a whole story about the producer that ends up. Yes. Well, remember, I was an investigative reporter, and it's not that hard, guys. There's like 3 formats. Okay. So, like for my name, Karen Schaler, and like if you can go on any website, we won't pick on Hallmark, we'll do Lifetime. You go, and they're never going to give their emails because they don't want you all bothering them, right? Exactly. But if you go on Lifetime's emails, sales, people always want sales. Every company in the world will have a place to click for sales, and you look at the back end. So maybe it's Google, sales at google.com or googlenet.com. So you get that part of the format. Then it's a name. It's either Karen.Schaler, K Schaler, you do it, and you can put in one and blind box the other, and then wait and see what comes back. Or Google it, like KarenSchaler.com, and somewhere it comes up. I have never not had one come up. So I found an executive, and she wrote right back, and she said, actually, this sounds like just like what we make. She goes, but we, go through producers. I don't see you on IMDb. Who is your agent? Of course, I wasn't on IMDb, and I didn't have an agent. So I quickly asked a literary agent, hey, can you be my agent? Because, I think I need that. I don't think they'll talk to me, without it. And then that's when she said, the executive, then I said, well, and I have a spec script. And they said, well, that one, we're actually doing one very similar to that right now. But, keep us in mind. But then I thought, okay. So she said, producers. So I went back to those Hallmark movies, and it's not easy, because I hadn't DVR'd them at the time, and it's not like they weren't at that time on Amazon. So now I'm watching new ones, and I started writing down the executive producers, and then I started over with emails. And so I would get back from some. We don't take unsolicited material, or one of the assistants would write back, or nothing. Most of the time it was crickets. But the one producer that I found, it was funny because there was the company name, like I told you. And I tried that, didn't get anything. But I just kept Googling, and I found a Gmail address. Of course I did. And it was a college alumni event. And I'm like, And I remember what he said when he goes, I'm getting on a plane. I don't even know exactly how this email's got to me, but this is exactly what I do. I'm looping in my assistant. Send your script. So the long of the short of it is the investigative skills and the tenacity. And I also have no fear, because you guys, they can only say no. Mm-hmm. And I've done now 4 movies without an agent or a manager. And I would love an agent or manager. It's just a big responsibility to pick someone that represents you. And I literally haven't had the time. It's my goal for 2023, because you can only go so far on your own. And I've added other projects in. But at the time I was, I just thought, if I can get it to the right person, and you have to be very professional. You can't have look at how long I'm talking. You could never do that in an email. It's just got to be bottom line, what you can give them. You don't need to say who you are. They don't even care. I just say, this is what I have for you. I saw you did this, and this movie. Mine is like this. You want to see it. And what I've learned, our spec scripts, and this, Colin, are gold in Hollywood, because I'm now in the Writers Guild, but they don't have to pay you. I mean, it's worth a shot. You never know. They never know when the person sending a spec script could be something they could buy. It's hard to sell them, but I sold A Christmas Prince was a spec. Christmas Camp was my next movie. Hallmark was a spec. Then Lifetime hired me to write from the one line that they had an idea for Toni Braxton. And then Lifetime the next year called me and said, we need your help. It was like May or June, and said, we just know we want a snowflake festival. Go. What can you do quickly? Because we need to shoot it. And that's because of course I had built a relationship, the year prior. And then
how
it was a
long
pandemic.
did it take you to shoot or to write when they called you up and said, Karen, we need you, we need a script? How long does it take you to write something?
It depends on where I'm at. Like if it's a basic idea, like, and it depends on if I'm writing it on my own and no producers, actors telling me I'm just my own, I
Yeah.
can do one in a week. But I'm talking fully immersive. I
Yeah.
don't have kids running around. I'm not, I am like, I get up, I don't talk to anybody, I'm all in. Then
Yep.
I'm editing, but I can have it ready to go in a week to 2 weeks where I feel good enough. Because here's what I learned, you guys. I can make it perfect and use my first 2 pages opening scene 1,000 times. But what I've learned for all 3 networks or streamers, they're going to change it. So don't be precious, be open, and you got to be open to it. You want to sell them the idea. It's got to be good enough that they see the vision and love it, but they're going to change stuff. They're going to ask you to make it theirs. The director, Colin, you're an actor, right? I'm sure. How many times have you gotten a script where because what you bring, you've suggested things like every time, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And that's my job. My job is to work with you, Colin, and say, hey, that's what I did with Toni Braxton. I want to make this is your movie. I'm working for you. And a lot of times I don't know who I'm writing for, so I don't know until after they're hired. And so there's going to be a lot of changes that can happen. So when I say 2 weeks, that sounds a little crazy and fast, but I do it because I just think that it kind of comes out of me like I'm talking now. It's really fast. If I tried to write an hour a day, it'd probably take me a year because I just my brain doesn't work that way. I just have to put it all down really fast.
And where would you say, like, your ideas come from? Could you tell us a little bit about your creative process? And do you ever get writer's block where you're like, man, I don't know, or like you're in the middle of a story and you're not sure how it ends? Or do you just get these downloads of like, oh, I know exactly what this story is?
I love that question. Well, for me, I'm really blessed and cursed, I think, at the same time, because it's there. All of I have so many ideas. I think we call in the business one sheet. So after you maybe get a movie or they know you can sell on just an idea of a paragraph or a one sheet, which is the entire idea, start to finish. You have to give away the ending. And I probably have like 40 of them because I can crank them out, and I have so many ideas, Colin, it's ridiculous. So even in TV news, my news directors would say, I'm the idea person. Like, okay, we're going to go to Africa. How do we do a fresh spin? I'm like here, and everyone's like, okay, wow. That's just my skill. That's my God-given gift that I've been given, is I have all these original ideas. I do not outline. That has bit me more in novel writing than it has in screenplays. I always know the beginning and I always know the ending. The middle, I just let figure out as I write. And because I sit down and write it, sometimes I'll have to stop, but it's not writer's block. It's like I have too much. I'm more about someone that has to cut, because I have all these great ideas for scenes and I see it so vividly. And I think for me, that's why writing audio that I did for the first time this year was such a challenge, because I see it. Like I visually see it. And I can only write, when you say to stay on of ideas, it's all coming to me from different places. Like, okay, so my book this year, here's a good example. This house, this is a real house. And it's in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And this is a B&B that I stayed in, that when I went there, it felt like a Hallmark movie because it was charming and amazing. And that hostess, it literally was like a movie. So all of a sudden I'm thinking Love Always Christmas, a community. I'm thinking Fredericton. I'm thinking this B&B, this house. So a lot of it's experiences that I've had. But then I listen too, and a lot of people think, okay, you've written all these Christmas contents. You must have had magical Christmases. I mean, that's where you get it from, right? Like you have these beautiful Christmases, and it's actually kind of the opposite. I mean, it's not. I came from my mom was, a single mom, a public school teacher. We didn't have a lot, it was a struggle. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a family ever around a Christmas, table. I didn't have carolers. I didn't get to play Christmas games. So I think for me, a lot of it was wish fulfillment that I'm writing, and that, maybe I've seen with other people and their friends. So I write what I know. I write what I've learned from others, and I write what I really want it to be. And then that's what I get to do in Christmas, because, I'm writing these fiction, imaginary things. So I just think if I could dream the dream of anything, what would I want? And that's why I love to escape. It really is an escape when I write. I get to go to this magical place. I did an interview for the Today Show. They came when I did Christmas Camp, the Hallmark movie. Then I wrote the novel as soon as they were shooting it. I decided to write the novel because I thought, wouldn't it be cool if it came out together? I wanted to have that IP. So I wrote the novel second. But then I was a little crazy, Colin. I said, well, I'm really into this Christmas camp. I think it's a really good idea. I think I need to create it for real. So I had trademarked it. And I called, because I'm traveling, I'm a travel girl with my show. So at the Phoenician in Scottsdale, Arizona, I had a relationship with, I'm living in Manhattan, but I just knew it'd be perfect because they had this renovation, this restoration. It was all about revitalization and all of this. And I'd gotten a press release on it. And so I said, how would you feel about putting on a Christmas camp with me? I'm going to bring this movie and book to life. And we did a tweet. It came when the Hallmark movie came out. I did a tweet that said, somebody said, I wish there was a real one. And we hadn't even picked exactly what. We didn't have programming up. But on that tweet that I said there is, and here's the link, because we knew that we wanted it to be ready for when the movie came out. And we had 400 room nights in a half hour sold out. I mean, we didn't even want that many. We were just going to have 100. Next thing, they're calling the front desk going, what's this Karen's Christmas camp? Because we have 400 people coming. And we hadn't done the programming yet. But that's because I think, we get to create this magic. So my crazy thing is when you say my ideas, I have too many and then I fall in love with them. And then I think they need to be real. So yeah, I have a little bit of a problem. A little bit of a problem there. Christmas
one of the biggest reasons why I love being an actor is I love having my imagination run wild and being able to see all these being able to play all these different characters. And growing up, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a baseball player, a football player. I wanted to be a firefighter. I wanted to be an FBI agent, and I wanted to be a doctor. And being an actor, you can play all of this stuff. So that's what's so fun.
I have a question for you. I was curious because obviously you've done these magical on the topic because it's almost Christmas, but then you've also done, as I say, the Lifetime, some dark and twisty. I guess my first question would be, what do you enjoy doing most? Is it the ones that really challenge you, that are opposite from you? Or what? I mean, as an actor, I'm curious how that works.
Good question. So I am fascinated by the psychology of what motivates people to do what they do. And I like to try to understand from how they were raised, what their upbringing was like, what may have happened in their life to make them have these, like, what some people may think as evil desires to do things. And, it's very easy to just blanketly label someone as good or bad or evil or, whatever. And I think it's a lot more complex with that. I have a degree in biology. So, there's so many different factors that go into how we behave and why people do what they do. And it's a combination of nurture and environment and genetics and upbringing. And I've always just been fascinated at playing these different characters, especially when you see people do some of these diabolical things and you're like, how could someone do that? I guess it's my curiosity that makes me want to delve into and investigate and figure out. And once you start to investigate, you can start to understand what made someone do what they do. And you name it, everyone from serial killers to some of the worst dictators out there. If you really start to understand who they are, what their upbringing was like, you can start to understand a little bit of why they do what they do. And I think that's what's fun for me being an actor and playing these different kinds of characters. So I think it's these darker characters who have these conflicting upbringings that I love to play the most, just because it's just so fascinating.
Well, and I think what's so great about that is the characters that we love the most, and I think that we're drawn to when we watch, and you have that evil, diabolical character, but yet you're connecting with them. You look at Breaking Bad, right? I think is a great example of where there were some really, you're like, oh my gosh, why am I rooting for them? But you're connected. Right. And then when you see that backstory, and when I was a crime reporter, I spent time on death row and I did, interviews. It sounds very similar to my process as an interviewer, to get their backstory, to get them to talk, to get them to share, because I want to be able to share their story. And you have to dive into your character, whether it's fictional or it's a real person, and you really need to know their backstory so you can embrace it kind of like you said, organically, almost biologically, of like to bring it to the surface to really act, kind of that method acting, right? Which can be hard on you though. I mean, that's got to be when you're playing Christmas. I mean, it seems like so much fun for the actors, that I've seen, but I haven't done the other kind of movie. I jokingly say, with my background, they do say, write what you know. So one of my tips for anyone out there, I always say, try to do something organic to you. I talked about the Prince story because I had, experienced something similar. All of my stories, have that. But I feel like for me, then people find out my background, and they're like, oh, we want you to write crime or something with the CIA or embedded military. But I'm never saying never, but right now, it's like I did that. I lived that life for many years, and I like writing romantic comedies. Doesn't have to be Christmas, but I like rom-coms. I like to laugh. I do like true life stories. If I could write any movie, I would have loved to have written Blindside or Out of Africa or, those type of stories that really have that cultural impact. I had a degree in broadcast journalism, also a double major in sociology and a minor in psych, because I didn't want the poli-sci reporter like most of my colleagues. I wanted the cultural, and I wanted that background. And I think that's so fascinating, So is it fun when you get to do one of these Christmas movies because they're short? Is it like, or is it harder because you have to, it is a short turn. And for people that don't understand, you can explain better how fast these things are shot.
Yeah, I mean, most independent films, I mean, whether, like, I just did this movie in West Virginia where I played, true story. It was based on a guy who killed 2 of his wives for the insurance payout. And this guy is actually in jail. And I mean, this is a thriller. This is going to be on Lifetime, coming out, I think, February or March. And we had 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks to shoot that. And I mean, that's similar to what Hallmark and, most Lifetime movies are, maybe 3 weeks. We just crank them out. And that's why you've got to have really good people doing this, because you move so quickly. You've got to be able to make sure that the writing is tight. You've got to make sure that the actors know how to deliver. You got to make sure that, the director and the cinematographer are speaking the same language. And I'm sure you've been on several projects where you've been like, oh no, this one is gonna
it's gonna be
the director maybe wasn't as decisive as they needed to be. But I mean, I think that's what's so exciting about all of this, in that, you never know how something is going to turn out. And even with the best actors, there's plenty of movies out there with amazing A-list actors that just never really saw the light of day, just because for whatever reason, you don't always get
click
in the bottle. And
it didn't click. And people don't, I think that's so important. People wonder why movies tank and, and things like that. And that's why you're so great what you're doing, Colin, with taking people behind the scenes, because, then you can really know, how does this really work? And somebody said, I was telling some story and they go, oh, well, I don't want to know. I remember I watched, years ago, an episode of Family Ties, and I got to be in the audience, and my friend knew one of the producers. And again, wasn't connected. I was a kid. But I remember after I saw it, I was kind of disappointed, because it was like, that's it? That's a little room? Because it was my first time seeing anything, the TV magic. But somebody said that to me. They said, when you tell these stories, are you afraid that it's going to ruin it? And I said, no, I hope that people are drawn more. People want to know, especially now, they want authentic. They want to know why you, why can you write it? How can I do it too? Or at least, even if you guys listening never want to write a movie, it's kind of interesting, right? To hear how, Colin, and to think 2 or 3 weeks is what I think people are most shocked about, how quickly these come together. I remember on my Toni Braxton movie, they were shooting, it was crazy. And my grandpa was sick. I was in an ER with my grandpa, and I got a call that they lost a location. And so they're like, what are we going to do? So I sat on the ground outside the ER waiting room, on this cold floor in, a hospital with my laptop banging out a scene, because they only have so many days in light, and actors for that, that they had at that time. And you better be ready, to rock and roll. It's pretty immersive when you're in that time frame, which I love that. A lot of times writers, we don't get to go to set for the very reason that I've been told that they don't want the writer. It's kind of, it's locked. We're going, let's just go fast. It's just, could be another person, in the way. But being Writer Guild has been a blessing for me, because I get to be more involved, and I learn from the directors and you guys, the actors. I learned so much. Like a quick example that's super quick. In the Toni Braxton movie, I have them play Christmas Pictionary, right? And so the whole gang is together, and we're doing this really fun. And the director, I was there for that scene, and the director explained after, he said, this is a perfect example of what worked. There was a reason to have the ensemble here. But let me tell you how hard it is to shoot everyone. All the river, I saw it. Like, now we got to shoot this way. Now we got to shoot this, because there was like 9 people, in this thing. He goes, that's why when you see a group of people, you see them sitting at a table. We usually, if you write it somewhere else on these quick movies, we're going to sit them at a dinner table, because it's hard to shoot. And I wouldn't have even known that. So you learn so much. As I feel like I learn every single day, that I'm blessed enough to get to go on set. I'm like, just like the kid that watched the movies, writing everything down. I am literally taking notes. So hopefully, and then learning from actors, like what you like on the table read, what you don't, what works, because there's a lot of psychology in what we do. And it's why you're so good at what you do, because you have that background of the curiosity and the care and all of that. Because I remember telling the producers on one, it was the networks and the producer and the actor, and everybody wanted something different. And I remember going, y'all decide. I'll do whatever you want, and I remember thinking, I'm a therapist, because I'm trying to, wrangle these cats, into one thing. I'm like, I remember telling someone, they go, yeah, that's screenwriter / therapist. Yeah, you got to be that to, handle it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And going on the whole offering insight here, we've got some questions here from Stephanie Santana. She's asking about, when it comes to writing both books and movies, as a freelance writer, what are your words of encouragement for someone who wants to write movies and books as a freelance writer?
Oh, great question, Stephanie. I love that. I think, first of all, to figure out what one you're most passionate about. It's really hard to write in both. They're both very different styles. I personally am a screenwriter. I see it first, and I use my screenplay as a template for my book. That's me personally. So I think first I'd find out, are you a novelist? Is that where your first heart is? And then you're going to transition into a screenplay. If you're a screenwriter and then you want to do the book. So first know where your strength is, because and you're going to want to study it. They're very different. And I think the biggest thing is, as a freelancer, if you're looking at Hollywood, write the spec script. I can't give any better advice. I wouldn't be where I am right now if I tried to get an agent for 5 years, if I went to festivals, if I shot shorts. It wouldn't have happened. But a spec script is gold. If a producer, an actor, somebody has a script, even if they blow it up and it's finished, you're going to be ahead of the game. There's usually someone that will read it at some point, and the log line is probably even more important. So, and I should back up. You need a log line, which is the 2 sentences that says, like, Karen must, this is terrible, I'm making it up, but like, Karen must return home and save her family's, ski resort by Christmas, or right? You have to have that. Then you have a paragraph. And what you do is, whoever you're pitching it to, go on Hallmark's website, look at their paragraphs, go on IMDb, the database, look at their synopsis. And you want to be in the same language, the same style. So when someone reads it, they think, oh, she gets it. She's one of us. She's using our language. So I think that's the most important thing that I can advise. And write a spec. And if you're in terms of a script, but if you're a novelist, remember, it doesn't have to be a whole novel. Like mine are usually 380 pages. My smarter novelists write 250 pages. I just have so much to say. My characters seem to chatter. I can't imagine where that comes from at all, but yeah. But if you can also do a blog post, right? You can option, as long as you have intellectual property, it can be a short story. It can be a novella. So if you don't have time and you're like, gosh, I can't, write a 380-page book, write a little novel. Write a little article, do a blog. Any of that's IP, and IP is huge. I think at some point I did some research, and 61% of the movies made that year were from a book or from a news report or ripped from the headlines. So those are things.
It's better to write the book first and then adapt it into a screenplay to try to get some attention around the book, to then adapt it into a screenplay? Is that,
that's a great question. My very, very first thing that I wrote was a romantic comedy, and it was like 10 years ago. And I wrote the screenplay, and I was told, you're nobody and nothing. There was really big stars that were interested, and there was a whole way that had happened. But the deal is they said, even if you were great, we're not going to hire you. You're not a big enough name for the stars, that are going to be attached, that we're packaging this. And so it was like, okay, then I'll write a book. And then they'll option the book. So that's how I started this idea of, so then I took the screenplay as an outline, wrote the novel, and they optioned it immediately. And so it was even a rough draft. I didn't even have it edited yet. And I was very blessed at the time. I had Gary Marshall reading it. You know, I drop names because, and we have a thing called First Fridays in the Writers Guild. It's Jim Arnoff. He used to be at William Morris. He's an agent. He's an entertainment attorney. He's a consultant. He's amazing. And he's one that taught us, drop names when you're sharing. Don't just say an executive, because people need to know and learn, because it's real. You're not just throwing out, and I'm not bragging, but I was so proud of at that moment, you know, that had happened. So sure enough, they brought in screenwriters that were really well known, you know, that had a big show. But then the screenwriters left that agency. It was CAA at the time, and went to a competing agency. So all of a sudden we didn't have writers. And that's when it was really great. It was a book person, a book agent, book to screen at CAA, said, just read Karen's script, you know, and they did. And then they let me work with them to develop it. And I was the sole screenwriter. I was so excited. But it was right around 2008. And that's right when those romantic comedies that I love so much disappeared. And they also, you know, they had big projects, and it was Craig Zaden, and you know, they were amazing. They had won Oscars and Emmys and Tonys, and they got Neil Marin and Craig Zaden. They got the rights to produce the Oscars, and so kind of romantic comedies went to the wayside and disappeared. I mean, some people say Christmas Prince kind of being on a streamer and being such a bonkers, like their most watched movie ever. And
Really?
and with to all the boys, these romantic comedies, people saw money in them. I did a story, and I just was interviewed on Forbes, and so we had to do all the math. When I wrote Christmas Prince, the next year it started to blow up because everyone started to see money. 2017. Okay. It came out in 2017. And the next year, all of a sudden, everyone wanted to get in the Christmas game. Before, it was just Hallmark, and Lifetime had a few, right? So Hallmark ramped up, Lifetime ramped up. Netflix, I think, maybe did 2 the next year. I'm trying to think, not a lot at the time. And so everybody jumped in. But now the difference was on the Today Show, I remember the guy said, and there's 60 original movies out this year. And right now there's more than 171 Christmas movies. And like when you add in novels, there's more than 250 original Christmas novels and movies out this year. Christmas just exploded. Just this year. Yeah, just this year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, true story. Because everyone's jumped in. And same with novels, you know, same with novels. Like there's so many. And a lot of people went in and, you know, I joke because the producers out there, they'll take their non-Christmas and go, oh, just throw in a tree and let's sell it as a Christmas movie. And I've told them, I'm kind of a purist, and the producers know, the networks know. I'm like, guys, Christmas is a character. And if it's not going to work. You know, it's got to have some of the theme. Yeah, sure. If you put Ryan Reynolds or somebody amazing in it, and I haven't seen his movie, so I'm not referencing that yet or not, but you know what I mean? But if you're doing a regular Hallmark Lifetime type movie, you'll see the ones that fall flat and you don't even know why. And it's because there's no thread of Christmas or nostalgia. You know, even in my Audible project, you know, originally they were like, oh, you know, it's talking about edgy, sharp, you know, the young audience or whatever. And then they said, we want cozy Christmas. We want to lean into the nostalgia. And that's when they contacted me. I'm like, I'm here. I mean, I can write comedy like nobody's business. And I do. And, you know, I have my Audible has, these people say they laugh, they cry, you know, it has the whole gamut. But at the end of the day, if it's Christmas, guys, there's got to be some theme that has to do with Christmas, or just, it's not Christmas, you know. I'm like, it just, it's like my little pet. That's my personal pet peeve, just because people want to make money off of it.
Diana is asking, how does one get into the Writers Guild?
Oh, great. That's a great question. I fought so hard, guys. I fought so hard. So the way that you get in, first of all, when you're a baby writer, that's the language they use for years and nobody likes it. But when you're a young writer, even my first movie for Netflix and Hallmark, I was not in the guild. And that means they can pay you anything. They can do anything. They can take your name off it. They can put their cousin's name off it. You know, even if you have a good entertainment attorney, they can still do anything. And unless you have more money than they do to fight, you know, it's going to be rough. So it's going to be a rough go. So after my first couple ones and really realizing that, wow, how do I, you know, get to be involved, or how do I make sure that the, you know, the directors, and this did not happen, but I'm exaggerating, but how to make sure that the director's 5-year-old didn't finish off my script, you know, I mean, you know, how do I do this? So in the Writers Guild, you have to it's a point system. And if you send me a message, and Colin, you know, you can get to hold of Colin, and I'm happy to share the Writers Guild website. But if it's, I'll do feature. If you do a feature film, it has to be a union film, meaning let's just say Lifetime has to say that producer is going to shoot it as a union, Writers Guild union film. And if you shoot one feature, if you write one feature, then you are eligible to get in. So you have to have a credit. So my first 2 features were not union projects. So even though I wrote them, I could have done, there are writers out there that have done 40 films that are not in the guild, and they don't want to be. There's reasons, because when you're in the guild has a minimum that people have to be paid. So the 10 or 15,000 that people like to pay, or even 7,000. I know somebody that was paid to do a Christmas movie as a writer. All of a sudden in the union, and this is, out there, for everyone to know, I think the minimum right now is 56,000, meaning you cannot pay a union writer less. So if you're a struggling producer and you're like, hey, I want to pay Susie Q 7,000 because she's dying to have a Hallmark movie, or I got Karen over here who wants 56,000. And when you're in union, you get health insurance, pension, and you get, all the residuals. So, when you see those Christmas movies over and over, you get paid for them. Now, my Christmas Prince, even if I'd gotten a penny for every time it was viewed, the billions of times, I would be a multimillionaire. I was not union. I got paid once. And that's it. And I love sharing all the behind the scenes because it's important. So I fought, and I say fought in a good way. When Lifetime Toni Braxton movie came around, I'd already decided after 2 movies, if I'm not 20 years old, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it smart. So I said, I want to be union. And they literally, no, we don't, no. Like this year, there's a couple networks I don't think that used any union writers because we're expensive to them. And so they were like, no, we're not making it union. I'm like, then I have to pass. They're like, what do you mean people don't pass in this business, Karen? You don't pass. And I'm like, well, I have to pass because I'm union or bust. So we made they were great. This wasn't Lifetime. These were the producers and all the people behind the scenes. They said, okay, we'll make you a deal. We shoot a lot in Canada, which a lot of if you are Hallmark fans and you've seen where the sets are, a lot of them, are up in Canada. They said, we'll make you Writers Guild Canada. I'm not Canadian, but they can do that. And that way I have a lot of the protections. I did not get those residuals I told you about that are really sweet. But at least if there was a problem with my credit, there was arbitrations and things like that were in place, there was more protection. And again, if the director wants something rewritten or an actor, they can't ask their 5-year-old to do it. They have to ask the writer. I'm still there. Or they say, we love you, Karen, but we're going to bring in another writer to finish it. That happens all the time. You don't take it personally. Sometimes a new, fresh voice, but that writer has to be Writers Guild too as well. So at least you're going to get someone at an experience level. So your project that you love isn't going to go to somebody that's the intern's cousin. That can happen. I'm not saying that every writer in the Writers Guild, but generally speaking, to get there. And then it was my last movie on Lifetime. When they asked me, I said, okay, now I want to be US Guild. I put the line in the sand. And the only way I got it, guys, is because they needed it fast. It was like May or June, and there was not even a concept, on the table. And so, and I love them. I had such a great experience working with Lifetime, and they were really good to me. But it's really the producers that they hire. The way that it works is the networks give the money to an executive producer, and they have a budget, and it's really their money, the executive producer's money. Then Lifetime and the networks often don't care because they give, but it's the producers that are like, wow, that our bottom line, it doesn't add up if we're paying a writer this much and if we're paying residuals. That's what they tell us, at least. But I think it's so important to anyone out there. But if you're all out there, you're gonna work. There's no way you can start in the union. It's just not possible. You got to work without it. So get an entertainment attorney. I don't care if you have no money. I had no money. You need a good one. And I learned a really good lesson from an attorney. This was years ago in TV news. They said your contract is only as good as the person behind it. So even if you have a perfect contract, the other side can go, yeah, that's nice, but we're not going to do it. Sue us. That happens in TV news as well. And so you really want to ask whoever you're going to go to work with, ask around. It's a small business, and you can find out about people really quickly, and you just find out like, hey, what's your experience and things. So I hope that helped. I know it's a long answer, but the Writers Guild is like, to me, it was the best gift, that I gave myself. I fought for it. And I have been passed on jobs during the pandemic. Money is so tight, and they're like, we love you, but we can't use a guild writer. We got to pay somebody $10,000, instead. And that's okay. That's giving somebody else a shot to get in too. It all. I feel like I land where I'm meant to be.
So obviously, you've enjoyed a lot of success over the years, getting to where you're at right now. What would you say has been the most challenging thing you've had to overcome to get to where you're at?
Well, that's just exactly what we were talking about. I think for the Hollywood part of it, and even in the news part of it, is I am a investigative news reporter, and I seek truth, and I am really a hard line about doing the right thing. And the business of TV news, and just about any business that y'all are out there, you have your own stories. And I'm someone that fights every single time. Yeah, I fight for what's right. And I've been told, you're the only one that fought this guy. Nobody fights, or this gal. I will fight. So my hardest thing is, I come from nothing and nowhere. I have nothing to lose. And my grandma said once about, you only have your integrity. You lose it, it's gone. And so I'm not one that you're going to hire and you're going to do bad things to, because I will call you out. I will fight you. And in Hollywood, you'd never do that, because you don't get hired. You're known as a pain in the butt. Same in TV news.
Can you give us an example of what you had to fight for when you say
just everything. I mean, my goodness. I mean, there were contracts in TV news where I remember the little one. It was but it was in TV news. I was starting out. You make nothing, because they literally tell you there's 1,000 of you. They tell you that like actors. They tell you that as a writer in Hollywood too. So that's their way of controlling you. So I was making $14,500 a year, working at a small market in Texas, and I had my college degrees and all that. This was my third job, by the way, because this is how it rolls. I was a weekend anchor and a reporter. And because it was such low pay, they said, I was producing the weekend news, that they would give me a bump it was in my contract, that if I got the rating up, I would get $250 for each rating point increase. And so it came around, I had like 8-point increase, which is unheard of, because I had this new way of doing it. I'm aggressive, whatever. So instead of celebrating me, going, Karen, oh my God, we're beating the competition. You're amazing. Here's some flowers. We're taking you to dinner. And not only did they not do that, they got real quiet. They never paid me my bump, which was like 20, maybe it equaled like maybe not even $2,500. But when you're making $14,000 a year, I'm living on, literally, I qualified for food stamps. So I'm like, hey, and they go, hey, just play along. You'll be fine. I go, no, I want my money. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, they wouldn't give it to me. I said, no, but it's in my contract. And they literally would say, well, what are you going to do? You're going to fight us on it? You're not going to work. We'll talk. So I remember I went to a big conference of TV people, and I was on the plane, and I met a news director that wanted to hire me. I said, well, I'm under contract, because again, I am a fair player. I also play fair. And he's like, well, why are you at this conference? It's like a networking conference. And I said, because I'm leaving as soon as my contract's up, because this is what's happened to me. I don't have money to fight them, but I'm not staying with these people. And he goes, we'll fight them. And I'm like, what? And so they did. They got their lawyers and fought them. And I've had similar in Hollywood, where, there's been something in a contract that hasn't been upheld, and I've been told, play the game. This is how it works. I've literally was told, well, don't worry if someone takes your name on a movie when you're a baby writer. Someone's going to take your script, because when you're bigger, you can take theirs. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't work with that person again. I'm like, what? That is so messed up, Yeah. So, I mean, okay, now, Colin, you have to tell one, because I'm telling my dirty laundry. Now you tell me one. Something, because I know you have them. Doesn't have to be specific.
Well, I would say I've had to stand up for what I believed in, for my character, for a TV show that I was doing, because what they told me what it was going to be when I first got hired on it was not what it ended up turning into. And it got to a point where the dialogue that I was saying on this show was just, I'd walk in and it was just like, dump a bag of groceries on the table and say a couple of words, and then I'm out. And I went to the producers and the showrunner, and I basically said, listen, I want to be here. I love this show. But as from when I got hired onto this, I was, my character is not what I was, is not why I said yes to doing this project. Exactly. And I said, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job. I'm not trying to criticize the writing here, but I want to, and the way in which I presented it was that we were in this together. I said, I want to make this show the best it can possibly be. And I care about this character. I care about this show. And I want to make sure that we're as successful as possible. And I feel like we can dig deeper into these characters. I feel like we can have more connection. I think we can bring more real life real life instances into these relationships, instead of playing it on that superficial level of kind of just scratching the surface of
Yeah.
what, when you're really truly in love with someone and they're in love with someone else, and and it's heartbreaking and it's confusing, and I just, that's how I presented it, and it ruffled some feathers, but ultimately at the end of the day, when people can tell that you're passionate about what you do,
Mhm.
you're not always going to agree, and that's part of the whole process.
Right.
But what I try to do is just make it where I'm trying to make this as best as possible, and I think let's figure out a way to do this together, so it's not a me against them type of
Exactly.
approach to it.
I think that advice for anyone listening is probably the best advice, and I did that in TV news. We're all in it together. This isn't me against you, and I'm not winning any.
Plug for my computer. Hold.
Okay. Colin. I'm waiting for him to come back with one of those, tropical drinks or something from Cancun. I just want to know, is your room service like outside your door getting cold? Was that your dinner, or
That was the
oh no, it's turned down. Turned
that was
down.
the maid trying to turn down the room, and I was like, I'm doing a live broadcast over here.
So
You got
no
knocked on the
chocolates
door.
for you.
I
You're
was
not gonna
like-
get your little chocolate on the pillow.
I know. There's
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's so important what you were saying, because I've always come from that same way. Everything, even when you think you're alone, and it is a collaboration. And I've had so many people, it's probably my number one question, going, what do you mean they want to change your writing? Why did they buy it? I'm like, oh my goodness, if you're precious about your screenwriting, write a novel. So that's a good transition. So I loved my Christmas camp story, and it was, that I was doing for Hallmark, and we had ideas for sequel, Christmas camp wedding, the usual. And I knew there was so many different things going on, and I had seen through my first movie, Christmas Prince. I'm new to all this, you guys, how much stuff changes, right? And that's fine, collaboration. But I really was connected to Christmas camp. So I thought, okay, they get to have Christmas camp, but if I can't, my job is to do whatever they want me to do, but I am going to write the novel. And that's why it's the best thing for you guys to see, because I tell everyone, doesn't matter if you're a student, I speak to college students, people my age that are starting to write, all of that. First read the Christmas camp novel, you read the novel, and then watch the movie. They were written identical, because I literally had the screenplay first and then used it as a template. There's nothing different. But when you watch the actual finished product of the movie and the novel, they're so different. I mean, the heart's still there and the characters are still there and the storyline is, but there were a lot of things taken out. And Jeff Fisher, who is a director, who is amazing, I never got to meet him. So I never got to go on that set. We didn't even know when it was airing. And that's another thing. A lot of people are surprised. And I don't know if you've had this too, but I remember that Jeff and actors were calling me going, when's our movie airing? We don't see it on the roster for Hallmark that Christmas. And I'm like, guys, you're the last one that saw my movie. I don't know. I wasn't even on set, And it turned out that Christmas, so now I'm with HarperCollins. I have my Christmas camp book all ready to come out the same time as my Hallmark movie. This is going to be amazing. You can have both these, whatever you like, an audiobook too. And it didn't come out. And there was, none of us could figure out where it was. The director, Jeff, we didn't know. And all of a sudden it's November something. And I get a call from a friend in Toronto, Canada saying, oh, your movie Christmas Camp is playing in the theater. I'm like, no, my movie is a Hallmark movie. And they go, no. It's in a theater. And that's when I found out it was a theatrical release first, and people far above my pay grade understand the actors weren't happy because it meant something to the way they're paid when they did it that way. And then Hallmark released it in July. The following July is their Christmas in July story. So yeah, so it's all of that said, that's what I said, if you're precious, about like your book, your story, you can always write your book. I think that's the most important thing. But you have to know, and like what Colin was saying about collaboration, you never want to go and go, I have to have this, because one thing as a writer, it's not your story. It really isn't, guys. If you have 1.5 million or 2.5 million to make a Hallmark movie, it can be your story. And I learned that from when a news director, I was so young, and I'd go in, I have to do this. And I would fight, because you pitch stories every day to a news director to say yes or no, that's going to be on the 6 o'clock news. And I would get so upset when it was a story that America needed to know. And I still can just see me, and he'd just be like, oh, here comes Schaler. Oh boy. What do we got today, Karen? And I was just tenacious. And I remember he finally said, and it clicked, when you on the TV station, you can pick the stories. And I was just like,
Got it.
So it's the same with the movies, guys, same with the actors, right? When you do it, when it's, and that's why you see actors doing independent films and you see
Yeah.
writers trying to partner. And that's why it's so important, the collaboration. But you never want to make any enemies, because a fun story on the Toni Braxton movie, again, about who you know. And I think everyone that's watching this, we're good humans. That's why you love Colin, because that's what he exudes and that's the content he's giving to you to try to help uplift you. But it was funny, on my Toni Braxton set, I got to take my mom, and it was in Canada. My mom lives really close to the Canadian border in Washington. Usually that doesn't get to happen. So it was a once in a lifetime for us, no pun intended with a Lifetime movie. And so it's Toni Braxton, Every Day is Christmas. It's on Amazon Prime. It's probably one that I'm most proud of for different reasons, because I was in it from the very beginning and got to be on set and got to write for Toni from a one line. She wanted to be Scrooge, and wear sexy, fun clothes. I'm like, Scrooge doesn't get good clothes. But the point of it is, we are going to the set and there wasn't enough place to park, And so they said, we'll have one of the PAs come and get you, and drive you. So this young guy was great. And he would drive me and mom back and forth to set. And I'd ask him, what do you want to do? And I want to do this. I want to make movies, and all of that. Well, now fast forward 4 years, guess who's calling me? And guess who's just, taking out one of my scripts? He's now made 3 movies, because during the pandemic, when everybody else was shuffling, he leaned in and he got in there, so you never know who's going to be the next person, right? Have you seen that, Colin, where people that you met and then they become, your boss, maybe?
Yeah. So this movie that I just did in West Virginia for Lifetime, when I got hired to do the project, I got a text message from the executive who was producing the film, and she said, "Hey, Colin, I don't know if you remember me, but I was an assistant on the client list when back in 2000, what was that? 14, 2000, 14." I was like, "Yeah, of course I remember who you are." I was like, "How have you been? What's going on?" And I said, "Do you have some time to catch up?" So I called her. She was like, "Yeah, no, I've just been at Lifetime, and now I'm actually, producing these films." And she said, "We're looking for these projects." And I said, "Well, I'm starting to produce." And now I've sent her a couple of projects, and she's looking at them. And so that's how, that's
so
how it works.
awesome. Yeah. And that's why you have to be someone, both Colin and I shared stories about how you do have to pick your darlings, even when you're an author with your editor or in movies, that you're going to stick up for, but you all have to get along. So that's a very long answer. And I love that you asked that, because we both got to share that. That's been the hardest for me, because I always want to do what's right, and I want to do what's just. And in TV news and Hollywood, it's tough. It's tough to stand up for yourself, in certain areas. But I've never regretted it, And if it makes my road a little harder, then that's the road I'm supposed to be on. I just really believe that, I can only do with my integrity, and I will always uplift other people. My mom said when I was little, it's the wounded bird. She said, I always had the friend in class that was shy or didn't have friends or whatever, and I always championed them. I don't even remember this, as a kid. I had friends that were my friends, but my mom says, you did this your whole life, and now I'm in an industry. I left TV news, Colin, thinking I need a break. I need happy, wholesome, uplifting. I've been in war zones. And then I jumped into the crazy Hollywood, having no idea that even if you're writing uplifting content, it's still a business.
That
it's
can be a big war zone too.
Yes, exactly. It can still be challenging.
Yeah. So Karen, thanks so much for your insight tonight. Can you tell us what your upcoming projects are, and where can people connect with you to follow you on social media and see your
thank
projects?
you. Thank you. Well, one I'm so excited to tell you about. So you guys know Love Always Christmas. So that's out there right now. And of course, it's on sale everywhere, and it's audiobook and that. But especially for folks that love writing, Once Upon a Christmas Carol is an Audible original. And Audible reached out to me. I've never written specifically for audio, but it's a full cast. And I got to bring in Ryan Pavey, that Colin, was there at Drama. I'd met him prior. He has this great voice. So I had the idea. I got to be involved in casting. We have musicians. We have Christmas carols. I wrote an original song for it. I'm so proud of it. It has 2 hours. It's called Full Cast. It's written like in final draft, like a screenplay and all of that. So it's out right now, and it's free if you have an Audible subscription, or you can do that 30-day. But I just found out, and you guys are the first that I've told, because I haven't even put it on social or anything, Amazon Prime, you've that Yule log that you guys see that, it's the fire flickering that people put up, on Christmas, and it has music. Well, this year they chose my story, Once Upon a Christmas Carol, to be on Amazon Prime. So if you go on Amazon Prime right now, if you have a subscription, and you can listen for free, and I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm proud of that. And I have another royal story. If you liked A Christmas Prince, I've been so blessed to be invited to do a royal anthology. There's 24 best-selling authors, and it's good. I call it Royal Extra After, and it's actually it's really fun. I have somebody in New York, a real, a princess that's there, and basically she walks in Central Park, and they're shooting a movie. They're shooting kind of a Bridgerton type movie, and she gets mistaken for one of the extras. That's why Royal Extra After. And they're like, no, you're all wrong. You don't look like a princess. Go back to wardrobe. It's kind of course, the director, and more fun. But it's 99 cents, you guys, all the way up to April. At least now it is. It's coming out in April. So you can get 24 stories for 99 cents, which if you're a producer out there that wants to make royal stories, I would definitely look at these because they're little short, snackable, things. And I have a couple Christmas movies, rom-com movies, a full feature, a big budget kind that is in the works as well. And I'm going to keep writing, as much as I can, Audible books, and KarenSchaler.com is my website. So it's my name. On social, I am Karen Schaler Official on Facebook, Karen Schaler on Twitter, and Insta. I just mess with y'all on travel therapy. If you like travel, traveltherapytrips.com, but I'm travel therapy. And please find me on TikTok, because I just jumped in like a month ago and I'm having so much fun, but I probably need help. I just put my friend's cat on today. Like I had to. I mean, I'm actually giving screenwriting tips. I'm giving tips about writing Audible and books. I'm doing kind of what we did tonight, but every once in a while I have to jump on a trend, and that's Karen Schaler. So thank you, Colin. I want to just say, I love what you do so much. You're taking people behind the scene. You have such a good heart. You care so much, because now you're uplifting all of your people that are watching. So thank you. That's what Christmas is all about. 'Tis the season.
Exactly. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we get to ask Karen what her favorite movies are. Are you ready, Karen? This is the particular Pick Six. We get to ask you your favorite movies. So
this is hard. This is like picking a child. Okay.
All right. So this part of the show is brought to you by Picticular. Have you heard of Picticular, Karen?
I have not. Please tell me.
So
I like the name.
Picticular is a movie curating app that my friend Todd Courtney created, and it allows you to be able to find your favorite movies and find out where you can watch them. And so you can, and it's like a social media type of like connecting app where you can, these movie idea suggestions come up. You can swipe left or right, whether you are interested or not interested. If it's one of your favorite movies, you swipe up and you can save it into your lit list. And then you can save your favorite movies up there and then share your lit list with your friends. If anyone ever asks like, hey, what movie should I watch? You can just zap them.
Oh my goodness. This is brilliant. I love this.
Yeah. And then because people ask me where they can watch my movies, and because on the back end, once we actors make the movie, we don't really know where the distribution is. It could be on Netflix for a few months and then that ends and it's on Amazon Prime or whatever. So if you type in any of your movies, you can just type in and it'll show you exactly where your movies can be watched.
This is genius. This is genius. And for even people the other day, somebody was looking to How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and they thought it was on, Netflix, but now it's on Hulu. I mean, it's so hard, especially with streaming. I mean, talk about perfect timing for this. Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay, so I'm going to try really hard. Is this like speed dating where I just...
So it's
look at that.
Particular.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
And
I'm so doing this.
So this one is A Star is Born. I love this
movie.
movie.
My gosh, love that movie. Love this movie.
Swipe up. And then it's a match. And
oh my gosh, that's so cute.
And I matched with one of my friends.
Oh, that's awesome. That's pretty genius. And perfect timing, because maybe 5 years ago, there weren't that many places they could be, right? But now they change and they'll have it on Netflix for a certain amount and then licensing changes. Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
I'm just going to go right away and look up all my movies. I'm going to make it. So thank you.
And everyone out there, download Particular and then type in Karen Schaler and you can find out where all of our movies are and then click on whatever platform is up there to be able to watch them. So it's an amazing.
That is so cool.
So this is the Particular Pick Six. Karen, what is your favorite movie of all time?
I hate you. No, I'm kidding. No, this is so hard. Okay, favorite. I don't have I'm going to say one of my favorites, and I know that you know, I'm going to be full disclosure. Your producer is amazing. And so I could answer quickly because she knows I talk a lot, I'm sure, sent him to me so I'd have it. And I didn't get a chance to look. It was my birthday. That's my thing. So these are really off the top of my head, but one that just came to my heart, I should just go with that, right? Because it just came to my heart, is Out of Africa. And that's an older one. I loved Apocalypse Now. And I also love The Blind Side. So I'm not going to pick a favorite, and they're all very different. Those are all very different ones, you know, drama, but those are ones that really like spoke to me and in my writing and what have you, things like that.
Yes. Amazing movies. I still have yet to see Out of Africa. That was Robert Redford, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So amazing.
It's on the list now. It's on the list.
It's good. And plus I travel. And so Africa is very special to me. So, and it's based, you know, on a true life story. So.
Awesome.
There you
go.
The
Blind Side was produced by Molly Smith, who produced my movie, Something Borrowed.
I didn't know that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that movie.
Amazing producer. And that movie Blind Side is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal story.
I love it. And I think the journalist in me loves the true life story with a heart, right? Like, you know, we talk about something that has heart, and sports. I love sports. So I think that just was the trifecta, you know. There's so many. It's funny because you know, I try now, it's so hard. Like I try to watch new ones, you know, as Writers Guild, I wish I had them. They were literally right here. I moved them as I brought my little chair over. I probably have 25 of the new movies because we get to vote, you know, like with the Oscars, we have the Writers Guild Awards. And so I get to vote on them. So I have all the DVDs and I'm streaming them. I have TV and, you know, film. I have Marvelous Miss Maisel. I just got that today. So I feel like my job is to watch as many as possible. And it's hard, you know, and you also want to stay current to what you're writing and write with your heart. I always say, don't chase trends, because by the time it gets made, the trend will be gone. That's like the biggest thing, you know, people want. But okay, so what's next? Tom, how am I doing so far? I'm trying to keep it short.
Next question is, what was your favorite movie growing up as a kid?
Oh, the first one that comes to mind would be Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I'm just off the top of my mind. And I have one other, Sound of Music, by far. And the first time I watched it was in a theater. My mom took me, and it was playing in the theater. And I remember I was little with my little friend, and then she was picking us up, and we waited forever for her. And we're like, why are you late? Well, back in the day, the curtain shut at intermission when Maria left, you know, the house. And I thought that was the end. And so we were waiting outside for the other hour and a half. And I wrote down in my bucket list, and I did all of the places. I went to Salzburg, you know, and I the little gazebo I got to go in. I did the Sound of Music tour. So yeah, those two.
Awesome. What is your favorite holiday movie of all time?
Again, no, this is way too hard. Older one would be Miracle on 34th Street, because I relate, because a single mom and a little girl, and I believe in Santa. So that comes, you know, right out there. Current, I just watched it again. I love, well, it's funny. There's two. I love The Holiday, you know, I mean, it's obviously, I just can watch that over and over, and look at the cast. It's amazing. But I also I think a hidden gem that people don't know is Last Holiday with Queen Latifah is so good. And a lot of people don't know about it. And again, it's the message. I don't want to say too much about it, but it's so good, and it's funny, and it has heart, but it has such a message. And I wouldn't say this is, I did this recently, and I was telling somebody, a producer that's done Dark and Twisty their whole life and has never done Christmas, and wasn't quite understanding the Christmas, you know, like, we need to add lying in, and we need to add, you can't go home at Christmas. I'm like, okay, my goodness. But season 4, last episode of Schitt's Creek is 23 minutes. It's a Christmas episode. And I challenge anyone that maybe doesn't quite understand that's producing, or anyone out there, you can be Schitt's Creek, which is a hilarious comedy. I loved it. I binged it. I came to the party late and I just binged it. But that is how to tell a Christmas story. When I talk about Christmas being a character in the heart of Christmas, and you can do it in Schitt's Creek. So that is, I've watched that episode when I need a little lift me up, like it was during, you know, the pandemic, where I just watched that and made me happy. Good on them. Very good on them.
Yes. Awesome.
You notice how I'm not answering one. I'm giving you 18 for each.
Oh, this is great. Bring it on. Next question is, what's your favorite comedy?
I mean, gosh, like comedy feature, like a feature.
Yep.
I don't know why this popped into my head, probably because I just saw it, but I love The Proposal, again, Sandra Bullock, Betty White, Ryan Reynolds. I just think, and I'm trying to think of like slapsticky comedy. I will say I got to do at the Austin Film Festival, I got to be on a panel with the writer of Elf. And I really learned a lot. I actually studied a lot about it, and all the way to the fact that Elf's outfit, the writer loved Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the claymation, like I love. And so it's Ernie the Elf's outfit is the exact outfit that Will Ferrell is wearing in Elf, to try and to pull up those heartstrings that we're talking about, the nostalgia, whether you know it or not, right?
Yeah.
And so I watch Elf differently now because it's a silly comedy. And I used to say I don't like slapstick, to be honest. I want it to have a meaning and heart. But Elf does. It's about a boy trying to find his family, and about a boy looking for love, family at Christmas, and when I looked at it with fresh eyes, it's now a new favorite, besides just being silly and, spaghetti and, and all those silly little things. So yeah, comedy is a hard one because there's so many that that ping. But I don't like and I shouldn't say I don't like, because you should never say that, but I don't like just the kind of crude, crass, with no storyline, that's just looking for laughs because it's crude, I don't get it. I have to feel something. I want to feel something, not just repulsion that this is not even funny.
And who is your favorite, and you're going to hate me for this, your favorite actor or male character in a movie?
I do hate you. Gosh, this is really hard. I'm trying to think of one that really, I don't know. I can do, I think.
There's only a few million.
I know. Because I say one that I'm like, no, and then I say another. That's okay. I'm going to have to work on that one, because there's so many that come, I think because I've been binging so much lately, like I see one, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's that. Oh no, it's that. Maybe this is why I'm single, Colin. I know, I can't pick. TMI. No, but I'm like, oh, I don't know, because they all are like different. Can I answer the woman? And the woman one will be easier for me. Karen.
So do you like Tom Hanks?
I love Tom Hanks. I love just about everything Tom Hanks has done. I loved him. I loved him with Wilson. I love when he played with Wilson.
He's
and one that I would be geeky about, and is George Clooney, because his dad was a journalist, right? And I always felt like some of the choices, that he made, I loved watching him on ER. I liked watching his evolution. Again, it's kind of a story arc, for me, because I loved him in ER, and so I think that seeing his directing and all of that. And who doesn't love Robert Redford? Like, I remember Robert Redford in The Way We Were. That was one of my, my mom, I watched a lot of old movies, and so I remember that. And I still love one of my favorite female characters. It's probably a lot of people's, is Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. I just think that was such a funny, and again, a lot of heart, right? So I just think that, and there's so many, again, Sandra Bullock for me has so many movies that I just love, like her journey. The Proposal is so on my mind. Betty White. Who doesn't love Betty White?
Yeah.
And I miss that so much. And I think for a lot of them, it's not always the biggest actors that I really connect with, but it's the journey. So it'll be like the person, on their way up. And I like watching them, and I like seeing the choices they make. And that's what's fun for me. 'Cause I'm like, okay, I see where they're going. I see where they're going with it. I think it's funny that this is good psychology, why I don't have it. Some people could just ping them off and go, this is my favorite movie of all time. This is my favorite actor. It's hard. That's a really hard one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to work on it.
Really great suggestions tonight, Karen. Thank you.
I'm going to be busy on the app now, because now I'm going to dive in, and it's going to really challenge me to pick those. And I think that'll be good for me. I think that'll be really good. And then I'll, it'll probably say a lot about me too, like who I pick. I'm so excited. That app sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it is. And then you can post your favorite movies up on social media, what your lit list is, so people can watch your favorite movie recommendations.
So tell me yours really quick. I know we're running out of, we've probably gone over time, but tell me your favorite actress or role.
So Tom Hanks is one of my favorite actors.
Of course.
I also really love Russell Crowe.
Yep.
Because
Oh,
Gladiator is one of my favorite movies of all time.
good one.
Saving Private Ryan is one of my favorite movies
Yep,
of all
me
time.
too.
Favorite comedy, I would have to say Anchorman and Caddyshack.
Oh my God, I forgot Caddyshack. I love Caddyshack.
Favorite holiday movie, I do love Love Actually and
Oh, me
Elf.
too. Yeah.
Yes. And favorite movie growing up as a kid, Star Wars.
Oh.
Actually, Empire Strikes Back. That was my favorite.
Do you know, okay, if I tell you this, I'm going to lose all credit. I've never seen Star Wars.
What?
I've never seen it.
Oh my God.
I know.
Okay, we're turning this off right now. You
I
are.
know, I told you, I'm done. I'm done in the Colin world. I'm done.
Watch
I remember.
first, it's episode 4, 5, and 6. Everything, the ones that came out in 78 and 82 and 83 or whatever, those ones are the best. All this new stuff, it's just hard to really get into. But
Well, and I never, and I don't know what this says about me, but it's interesting. Even as a kid, I never liked sci-fi. My mom said I didn't. I like realism. I like comedy, drama, that type of thing. But I couldn't get into sci-fi fantasy. I don't write it. That's just not. I'm so in awe of people that do. The new Avatar's out. And I'm just like, I'm always, like I said, in awe. But look at the ones I picked, like Out of Africa. They're all a Blind Side. They're all real life story, real life dramas, real struggle. Interesting though. So, okay, I'm gonna have to see it because I've been.
Two of your favorite actors, Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, were in.
Oh yeah.
The name of the film escapes me, but someone on here will be able to.
Oh wait, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Somebody has to tell us now. I'm like, and I loved. Yeah, they're both so good. And of course, George Clooney, talk about the return of the romantic comedies. George Clooney and Julia Roberts. I mean, that killed in the box office, which is so good for me because, I write romantic comedies. So anytime one comes out, I guess I just need Julia and George to come on board. No problem. Yeah. Julia and George, when you're watching Colin, please call me. I will write your next rom-com.
Exactly. So I'm on Picticular right now. So type in Miss Sandra Bullock and it has all of her projects down here.
Yeah.
There's The Blind Side.
Oh, I love it.
And you keep swiping and Bird Box was really good. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Gravity. And you saw The Proposal too, right? Proposal.
Yes. So when you click on whatever project that the actor has done, it shows the trailer.
Okay.
And then you see down here all the platforms where you can watch it.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it's on Vudu, Prime Video, Apple TV. So when you click on
look at that.
Prime Video,
then you know where it is.
Then you know where it is, and it actually will take you. If you click on it, it takes you to your Amazon Prime account to actually watch it.
I love that. Well, and I didn't say How to Lose. I should have said for a comedy, the How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I love, and it's trending now on TikTok. There's a whole piece of it. And so there's a little clip and I just saw, Matthew McConaughey, which it was just genius. Those two and Kate Hudson together, I still love. I like the old romantic comedies. I like Notting Hill and Harry Met Sally, from Seattle. Of course, I love that one. And those were the ones that were fun and they're kind of coming back. And I love that the new generation is doing them. So this has been so much fun. I was just opened the comments for the first time and oh my gosh, thank you everybody. You guys, so many fun comments. Yay. I love this. Thanks to everybody for being here. I mean, my goodness, right before Christmas. So really, that is dedication. I so appreciate it.
Yes. And the last question I'd like to ask my guests before they leave is what inspires you?
People. Just 100%. Everybody's story. I am obviously a lot. I talk a lot. I'm a lot of energy. But because of that, as a reporter, people have always talked back to me. And I think it's a gift. And I do listen. And every single story, it's just at me. I was just in New York for a week and I loved it. I lived in New York 15 years full time. I'm now kind of a little moving everywhere, like Scottsdale, New York, LA. I'm just a little bit of everywhere right now. But being in New York and that energy, because there's so many people, so many characters. And I think that's what 100% people. And it's really the people that inspire me the most are the people, like ordinary people that are doing extraordinary things, that don't, you talked about those stories, like those Olympic vignettes. That's what I would write. I love those, the personal profiles behind the people. And that's what you do, Colin. So that's why I love you. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Karen. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your beautiful, amazing, big heart. Thanks for sharing all of your wisdom, and have a great holiday.
Thank you. You too, you guys. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for being here. And this is the last episode before the holidays. So I'm going to wish you guys all an amazing Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. Have an amazing time with your family. I'm going to be here in Cancun for a few more days. And then I'm going to be going to Chicago to freeze my butt off with my family. But I'm going to be with my family. And I always love spending time with my family because I don't get to see them very often. And wherever you guys are at, hopefully you guys are going to be able to travel safely. I know the weather is going to start turning here in the next few days. So please travel safe. Sending you lots of love and light. Thank you for an amazing past year of Coffee with Colin. We're going to be coming back in January with some more amazing guests. And again, this show wouldn't be what it is without you guys. So thank you again for being here. And, I'll be thinking about you tomorrow when I'm out at the pool here in Cancun. And hopefully I'll be sending my, the warm weather and the sun out to wherever you guys are at. And I think we can take a lot of inspiration and insight from Karen tonight. I love just how persistent she is, how much energy she has. And hopefully you guys got a lot out of this. And again, wishing you guys all my best for an amazing holiday. And I will see you guys all in the new year. All right. Take care for now. Lots of love.